Hey, it's John Nolan here. One of the most important things in my life is the health and the well-being of my family. And one of the products that we absolutely love to use and have had amazing results with is Z-Stack. It's Dr. Zelenko's Immunobooster, and it really does the job absolutely well. Now, as most of you know, Dr. Zelenko recently passed away, but he's left behind a legacy with Z-Stack and his other products, and also the Dr. Zelenko Freedom Foundation. So every time you purchase Z-Stack to help boost your immune system and the immune system of your family, 10% of the profits will also automatically go to the Freedom Foundation. So I encourage you to check it out, Z-Stack by Dr. Zelenko. Use the link and the coupon code in the description, save, and also help the foundation. Hey, Inspired Tribe, my fellow freedom lovers, John Nolan here. Thank you for joining us for another inspired conversation. Believe it or not, it's this guest's 9th time on the Inspired channel for an extensive conversation. I call him my co-host on these topics here. Thank you so much, Frank Jacob, for joining us again.
Always a pleasure to be here back with you on Inspired, John. And it seems like even though it's only been maybe a couple of weeks, like an eternity has gone by.
Well, but the way the world is moving, it was an eternity. I mean, the news are just bombarding in by the second now. I'm subscribed to a few interesting news tickers that kind of send me headlines. Yeah. And they're also very much, it seems very neutral in many ways. It's good. I get headlines I don't get. But anyways, Frank, this particular conversation here is extremely important to me, and I know to you. And it was triggered by a discussion you and I have been having over the past week or so, back and forth. I sent you something. I said, listen, I think something is fishy with this group out there that are actually bringing out some very accurate information, but at the same time, there's some huge red flags, and I'm talking about Oculum Labs. And Bill and Gideon and the people that were mentioned in the previous or shown in the previous Looking Glass video, or at least hinted at. Can you run us through the timeline a little bit? Let us know what happened and why we're sitting here today and discussing this.
Absolutely. I think the thing that we have to consider here is that it's always been, and this is something I really enjoy about our conversation, it's always been about this, just taking the situation in a very neutral, observational perspective and breaking down the information. And what we're learning is with all this information flood that's going on right now, it just seems like we have to be on a heightened level of awareness with respect to information, because there's so much false and true information that's mixed right now. And in the beginning of Tale of Two Timelines webinar, for those who've seen it, I talk about exactly that. There, we have to sort of up our game. So that means we can't just throw everything out, because there are certain aspects of it which are obviously false or misleading. But we have to be extremely diligent and extremely discerning in terms of what we allow, or what we allow ourselves to accept from that information, because it might be a valuable piece of information. And what these guys that appeared on Oculum Labs, this Gideon and Bill, what they were presenting in the very beginning, it was true, and I mean, the whole history, I just have a couple screenshots here. We remember this video that came out. It all started with this white hats that are working on Great Reset software. And, so we know about the Great Reset, we know about social credit stuff, but what made this interesting to me was that they were talking about a tiered social credit system, that there was actually, everybody was going to be equal, but some people were going to be more equal than others. So the cool thing about it is that, there is such a software. Here, I'll show you. This is thing, look at this. This is introducing patent US 2021 00825883A1. And if you look on this side of the picture here, down about the third or the fourth chunk, Section 208 of their patent is optionally allocating in score group. And the next one is interesting, vaccinating according to the score group, right? And this is exactly what the guys were talking about in their social credit system, that there is going to be tiers S, for sovereign restricted for obviously people that are hardcore against the system. They're going to be restricted. Then there's going to be the quarantine ones, which are absolutely keep hands off them. The rest of the 95% were going to be the commons. But all of those people had to have vaccination requirements depending on their score, except the sovereigns. So that patent is the actual physical, or one of them, there's probably others, but that's one I definitely know of that is out there, which is talking about just that, you know. And then they dropped the stuff out there about people in the mainstream alternative, as I call it, and people that we all know, that we all have come to a large degree to respect or consider to be the voices of the resistance, at least, you know, so much as in terms of we don't have to just take the mainstream. These guys would go at the alternative historical perspective of things. And so that was a big shock for a lot of people. You know, I think that was...
The shock was that those were classified sovereigns already in the system, and that they're already moving in funds into that system. That was
exactly that's exactly it. And so what you have is a sort of, you know, a double standard, and that was what they were hoping to use to gain attention to the software and the whole implementation. And not only that, but they're talking about the rapid increase in deployment. That it's actually the schedule has been moved up, and I have found evidence to support all of that, which maybe if we have time we can get into. But basically, to continue the story, then, you know, I think everyone got all hot and bothered by this next thing, and that was that they had a special insider group they were forming, which they were saying was going to be for people who wanted to become sovereigns, that they could apply, right? And you know, when I saw that, I just kind of thought, you know, I don't know, that's not why I'm in it. You know, I don't care about being a sovereign. And I mean,
we don't want this damn system.
We don't want this
freaking system. That's what
exactly. So I'd rather just fight to the very end, and if it happens, then, you know, whatever, go down with the ship. But the idea that they have, so I ignored it until all of a sudden, then you sent me something. You said, "Hey, man, I think there's something fishy about this." And I didn't really want to go there, honestly, to be, you know, like when you sort of get into believing somebody and wanting to give them a chance to get their, you resist this immediate flopping stuff. I tend to buckle in and let's see where it goes. And so, you know, I actually thought, okay, well, look, if that's true, I'm just gonna hit him up with it right in their faces, right? So I published. On their chat, I published this letter describing the 3 reasons why I thought it was a huge mistake to do this. You know, the one was that you're obviously going to attract people that are they just want to become sovereign. They're not necessarily interested in, you know, changing the world or helping the world. You know, they're desperate. Then the second one is you're going to get the obvious problem is that people are going to have to get in when there's some kind of a fund exchange. Yeah, as soon as there's a middleman and somebody has to give anybody any money, that's where the problem starts.
And can we a little expand on what that means? Because what we are referring to is their program where they had invited people to apply, and then they would be sent a special link and a special code. And we got access to that, which gives access to a part of their website that explains the program. And part of that explanation, we got all the screenshots. They kicked us out since, but we got all the screenshots. And the screenshots basically lead to, this is what you have to do. You have to give us your name and birth date and citizenship and that stuff. And then when you are in the system, when we find you and when we classify you sovereign, when we make that change, you will have to move funds into it, but not fiat. You can't move, you should only move crypto into it. And that was my huge red flag. Just wanted to intersect that. Please continue.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's totally legit. I'm thinking, no, this is a bad mistake. And anyway, I wrote that, and the answer that I got from Bill, who's representing Gideon on these online platforms, is this was a trap. This was a trap they set because there's these things called agents. Agents are just like in the movie Matrix, are these, you know, like Agent Smith. They're these gatekeepers that pop up in all scenes of any kind of resistance, and they really do. These guys really do exist. Yeah,
we have them all over our platform.
You have bots. We have them in the chat below, probably right now as we're talking. I mean, they're just like there are there's these personalities or these bots or AI. It's a big mishmash of crap, basically, that comes in and distorts the message. And in the case of agents, it's people who gain the confidence of well-meaning participants in the movement and try to sway them away or push them to doing something that compromises them in order to be able to set a trap for the purpose of the venture. In this case, Gideon's plan to bring out this information. And so he said, oh, it's just a trap. There is no inside group, And so I said, okay, fine. I'm glad you shared that, and I was satisfied for the time being with those answers. And then I told you about that. And then what happened is then a few days passed and I started getting more information from people that were sending me screenshots of stuff that was going on like just hours ago, where they had been in a dialogue and it was all the details about how to do it and what to give them and that they were going to select among them and then all this stuff. So I'm thinking, okay, well, obviously what he was saying to me about there being no inside group, just being a trap there's something not quite right about that. And I wrote back again. I said, look, there's cracks in your story, man. And so, I think you should just come clean with this and realize your idea is not working. This isn't about trying to scoot off agents at this point. You need to get your information out to the public, to as many people as possible. Forget these, you should be handpicking, if anything, people that over the next months or weeks have proven themselves as being particularly, vigilant, anti-New Age or an anti-reset warriors and approach them quietly and put together a team like anyone would do. You don't just go put out like a lotto and say, come on, right in, we'll make a warrior team. I didn't think there was much logic in it. And I could see by the very fact that there was all this leakage going on and this was going to compromise them. Sooner or later, somebody was going to do a transaction, if it was fake even, and drop that out there, and that was going to kibosh the whole movement. So I was saying, just drop it, man, and let's get down to some really intense disclosures. Come on the show with me and John. You don't have to be seen, it can be voice only. We can even change your voice, but I think it's much more dynamic when somebody's talking to you. We can get into some deeper stuff here, not just like info dumps that we can read and they're done. And, there was no answer to that. So, and my position to this very moment, even this morning was, look, the olive branch is there. John and I have been more than happy to take you up and bring you on and talk about this, even after everything that's gone down. But I think that's just a bad idea with this inside group and with the exchange of money. And so that's where it's at. And I think essentially, they've, I don't know what to say about them now. I think they've done themselves some serious damage if they're legit. I mean, we're always going to give them the benefit of the doubt, because there hasn't been any evidence. Nobody's leaked out any screenshots of, doing any kind of crypto deposits in their new sovereign USDC account. So we have only our own thoughts to go on as well. So we're on a kind of in a standoff. So the only difference being is that I know for a fact that you and I would really like to bust that system out into the open and have everyone talk about it, millions of people, but not if there's some kind of a hook on it. Because exactly. I can't afford to put you with your Inspire channel and all this stuff into that compromising position. And I certainly don't want to be, some fanboy guy that,
We don't put ourselves in that position either. And for that particular reason, because listen, I mean, here's one thing you got to consider as the viewers. Frank's here on camera. He's showing his face. He's showing his name. He's absolutely making clear who he is, what he stands for. The same with us, and we've been doing it, and we believe that's the only way for information to be disseminated to the masses in a trusting way. I'm not saying there isn't a space for covert operations. There is, and that's important that people stay anonymous. But our offer to Bill and Gideon was, and this is, I reached out to them. I said, listen, give me a conversation of 30 minutes. Give me 30 minutes of your time. We're going to jump on a video call. I don't need to record this. I give you my word. I just need to see and hear from you guys what you're up to and what you're doing. If you want us to continue distributing the information you put out, I'm at that point where I told you this, Frank. These are, to me, anonymous people that are apparently very focused on one aspect of this rather than what you just said is very important. And this is where I want to draw the line. The social credit system is already in place in China and probably in other countries partially. I mean, we know Italy has programs, all countries. I mean, look at New York City. In many ways, it's already in place, and it has been now with the requirements, medical requirements, and what you can and cannot do. This is already for a phase one of this system. So this is not a conspiracy theory. They want this system. It's the backbone of the Great Reset. Without it, you don't have the control over the people. So this is their plan. I'm not saying it's coming. I'm saying it's their plan. That now they're out of line. Everything that's happening on Oculum Labs, everything that's happening about how they send out those screenshots, we can't verify that. Not at all. But the fact that there is a social credit system in the works and in the plans, we can absolutely verify. World Economic Forum has been talking about it. World leaders have been talking about it. Even more lower level politicians have been talking about it. Business leaders have been talking about it. Elon Musk keeps hinting at it. He keeps hinting at it. So we have to draw the line, and I want to focus on the social credit part of this, and really, also for the other part, do your own research as always. We encourage you to do it. What we would absolutely discourage anyone from doing is sending funds. I mean, this is just my personal, I wouldn't do it. I encourage you to, especially if you have no idea who you're sending it to, what entity, if no one shows face, name, anything, you wouldn't do it in any other circumstance either. So that's just my idea. Right. And yes, Olive Branch, Bill, Gideon, whoever you guys really are, yes, the offer stands. Come, state your case, and we'll be happy to discuss it.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much the gist of it right there. It's all about, like, people can play with them. People can do a lot of constructive stuff, even for them, without having to invest a penny. Just like we've done so far. We've just been talking about it, getting people to become aware of it has done, monumental things and already moved a lot in the world. I'm absolutely certain of that. And, you don't need to invest a penny in that. All you need to do is just make yourself aware of what's going on and talk to as many people as you can about it, and put together kind of a kit of information which you can use. This is like what I said to you earlier. This is like weaponized discourse. Your weapon isn't a gun. Your weapon is knowledge and information. And having this knowledge at your fingertips, and when you're in discussions with those who are considered decision makers in society, like anything from the sheriff or the mayor up to all the way up to as high as it goes, really, in the country, the politicians, right? They are the public servants. That's what they're called. So they are there to serve the public. And if they're not seeing anybody resisting anything that's coming, and they know they've all been made privy, and that's how you can also tell, have they been made privy? Or are they pleading ignorance? Or if they have been made privy, then let them explain to you why they haven't shared it with everybody and discussed it like adults in the community. And if they haven't, then you're going to make them aware of it now. And from that moment forward, they have the obligation and the responsibility to share your perspective, which represents a lot of people out there, which are, skeptical about some kind of, social, and especially in America, the whole thing about the Constitution is about freedom. It's not about enslavement to some kind of a digital system. And so, yeah, I mean, so I thought, today it would be cool to watch a couple of or just to see a couple of examples of it, and one of the things that I think we talked about on one of our last talks was about gaslighting or keeping people distracted, and so I don't know what's going on in the States right now. I'm over here in Europe, but this is like one of the big things that was going on that everyone all hot and bothered.
Hold on, that 18 million people saw the dramatic European Championship finale?
Right. The 18 million people watched the dramatic European soccer or football match, but the Women's League.
Oh, okay.
The Women's League, right? So 18 million people, they're like, and this has been going on for weeks. Everyone's like, but Can you imagine if we had 18 million people watching us right now talk about the Great Reset and the social credit system? I mean, this is like opium for the masses. This is how they keep people distracted. There's never been a woman's EM on television before. And now we've got the men's EM, now we've got the women's EM, and all they can fill in the blanks of all the things that are being flooded. We're being flooded with stuff right now to keep us.
Let me also say what strategy is here. And this is, I mean, you can set your clock. It's summer. And over the past years, they always did the same thing. They would let loose over the summer. They would, not talk a lot about restrictions, not talk a lot about that stuff, give people entertainment, go out and party, do your thing, make it seem as if we're pre-2020, make it seem as if we're in 2019. So this is the strategy is you move in hard. So then you restrict people from their everyday lives like people have been. Then you back off. Then people relax. But you have gained your position. That's war. It's literally war strategy. You've gained your new position. Now you're 10 miles closer to the border. So then a couple months later, when people are relaxed, you move in again. You make it hardcore. You move 2 miles to the border. So then people are frightened and everything. Then you slowly let loose a little bit so they get accustomed to the new restrictions in place. This is what they're doing. So focusing on soccer, focusing on partying, focusing on travel, all that stuff now is simply to make people comfortable in the smaller box that they're in right now and before tightening it again. This is the strategy anyways. I mean, you can fight it, but this is the strategy. But Frank, what were you were talking to me about videos that you have on the Great Reset. Can we look at one of those? Because I think it's still kind of a nebulous idea what this Great Reset really is and how it's supposed to play out.
Well, here, then let's just jump right in here. This one is by a friend of mine sent me a video from a guy called Jim Rickards. And Rickards was the financial advisor, former financial advisor and former advisor to the Pentagon, to the CIA, to the White House, to the Department of Defense. I mean, this guy is one of them, right? And he appears in this video. He's selling, everyone's always selling something, and he's selling something. But I don't want to show us. We're not going to watch that. But what's interesting is he's selling something based on what Gideon and these guys are talking about. So I cut it down. We'll just watch a bit of it. It's pretty fascinating. It'll give you a lot of ideas about where we are at right now in terms of how realistic is it really that this new digital currency reset is about to happen. Because remember, Gideon was saying they're pushing. It could be anywhere from 6 months to the end of 2023, right? Instead of 2025. So let's listen to Mr. Rickards. Hopefully it'll work out.
Hi, my name is Jim Rickards. I'm a former advisor to the Pentagon, the White House, Congress, the CIA, and the Department of Defense. Where were you on March 9th, 2022, when President Biden signed the death warrant on American freedom? On that day, in a hush ceremony at the White House, without the approval of Congress, the states, or the American people, Biden signed into law Executive Order 14067. Buried in his order are a few paragraphs titled Section 4. The language in Section 4 makes Order 14067 the most treacherous act by a sitting president in the history of our republic, because Section 4 sets the stage for legal government surveillance of all U.S. citizens, total control over your bank accounts and purchases, and the ability to silence all dissenting voices for good. In this new war on freedom, the Dems aren't coming for your guns. No, they're thinking much bigger than that. They're coming for your money, and it's already started. Friend, this new currency will allow for total control of all American citizens, because every digital dollar will be programmed by the government. That means they will be able to turn on or turn off your money at will. Not only that, but they'll be able to track and record every purchase you make. And this isn't something years away. It's starting now. Biden's secret army has been hard at work, and U.S. trials are already well underway. In fact, our government is racing to catch up. China and Russia have already launched pilot programs for their own digital currencies. More than half the countries in the world and almost 90% of central banks are testing or exploring a digital currency right now. This includes Japan, Germany, India, France, the UK, Russia, Australia, Brazil, Canada, and China. I predict we'll see a digital dollar in circulation next year or 2024 at the latest. With Biden bucks, the government will be able to force you to comply with its agenda, because if you don't, they could turn off your money. This won't be like freezing a bank account. It will be so much easier, because Biden bucks will be digital tokens programmed at the source. They could be turned on or off at will with just a keystroke, and they could be reprogrammed at any time. With Biden's secret surveillance army running the show, the anti-freedom implications are almost limitless. For example, Biden bucks could be programmed to allow only certain kinds of purchases. Imagine what this new world could look like. You want to keep an internal combustion engine car? Your digital dollars suddenly won't pay for gas. Instead, you can be forced to buy an electric vehicle. That's just the tip of the fascist iceberg. They can force you to get vaccinated. They can force you into solar. They can force you to use less water or heat. They can force you to eat fake plant-based meat. They can control where you are allowed to travel. They can stop you purchasing certain items like guns, ammo, or survival supplies. They can control to which candidates you're allowed to donate. And they'll know every single place you spend your money, forever. America would become a surveillance state like China or North Korea. Every single aspect of your life could be controlled because they'll control your money. In fact, I fully expect them to implement a social credit rating system like in China. Say the wrong thing on social media, buy the wrong thing, subscribe to the wrong news channel, give money to the wrong candidate, and your rating drops. Suddenly your Biden bucks are frozen or disappearing from your account. This is already happening in China. There, a low social score gets you officially labeled untrustworthy. They can take away your ability to travel, restrict your internet access, deny your family the best schools or jobs. They may even take away your pets. I'm not kidding. All this is going on today. But that's China, an oppressive communist country. Could this really happen in a democracy? Just ask the truckers in Canada, because that's exactly what happened to them. Their Prime Minister Trudeau was granted special emergency powers during the peaceful trucker protest over his forced vaccination law. He then ordered all banks to freeze the accounts of the protesters and anyone who aided them in any way. And it wasn't just a threat. That fascist froze the bank accounts of non-violent protesters. He locked up over $6 million in private accounts for protesting a forced vaccination law the truckers believe violated their sovereign human rights. Think about that. They protested his policies, so he took away their money. The U.S. Federal Reserve has been quietly partnering with scientists at MIT to develop a digital currency to replace the dollar. They call this initiative Project Hamilton. Then this year, the Depository Trust and Clearing Corporation, the clearinghouse for U.S. stocks, bonds, and other security trades, quietly launched Project Lithium. Project Lithium is testing how a digital dollar will work in the financial markets once the current dollar is dead.
There you go. Once the current dollar is dead.
And that's what they're working on, hardcore, but not just the dollar, of course. It's going to be the euro. It's going to be the any other currency in the world. I've seen this before, of course, and heard all of these stories before. The thing is, the implementation has just gone off the rails in terms of speed. If you go in any bigger city, like when we go into Nashville here, the core downtown is pretty much becoming cashless, right? So we don't support that. We don't support businesses that do that. And if I find myself in a business where I didn't realize before I got the service, I will insist on paying in cash because it still is legal tender. I'm not saying the fiat that we have now is a desirable currency, but there is things we can do to slow this down and turn this around. So to me, this is just and what Dickerson is saying here, I mean, this is nothing. You don't have to be a specialist for this. He just happens to be in the inside circle.
Right. He's on the inside, and he sees it because he's probably been on those board meetings. He's been the fly on the wall at the very least as these policies were being developed. That's why he knows the name. Did you guys know about the name of that bill? I mean, yeah. Do we know?
I mean, I follow pretty much the executive orders, but I don't think a lot of people do.
No, because that was when that was at the end. That was
in March.
Right. It was right in the Corona hysteria. Right. So what a wonderful time to kind of sneak that stuff in under the radar and not tell anybody about it. Right. And then they even had this. I I got this little news blurb here where they actually claim to have put out a survey for the public to contribute. And this is another interesting little clip we should watch.
The Fed on the digital dollar looks at the benefits and risks, but takes no position on whether a central bank digital currency, CBDC, should be issued. They are requesting public comment for the next 120 days, and they offer 20 different questions in the report that they would like people to comment on. The quote of the report, the meat of it, is that the Federal Reserve's initial analysis suggests a potential U.S. CBDC, if one were created, would best serve the needs of the United States by being privacy protected, intermediated, widely transferable, and identity verified. Now, what does that mean? Well, that goes into the pros and cons list. On the pros side, for a digital dollar, there would be a currency people could use that would be free from credit and liquidity risk. It would be streamlined, and it would also make cross-border payments cheaper. It would preserve, they say, the U.S. dollar dominance, its role as the reserve currency, and promote financial inclusion, because there are still a lot of people who don't have bank accounts who could be included in the digital dollar. Yeah. On the risk side, it would fundamentally change the U.S. financial system, and this is the big one. It gets to the intermediation. If banks aren't taking in deposits, who's going to make loans? That's a real question. And it also means that the Federal Reserve would be in charge of your banking accounts, even if they are intermediated, if a bank is between you and the Fed. And that would have to be redesigning the financial system. Yeah. It could reduce credit availability, raise costs. It could make bank runs more likely, would change the management of monetary policy. They'd say they'd have to have a much bigger balance sheet. They'd raise significant privacy issues. You could have to design it so that you don't have financial crimes like money laundering. Okay. And then cyber and disaster threats.
Cyber and disaster. Okay, this sounds like a scintillating report. I'm going to get to it after we get off the air.
Okay, those cyber threats, guess who those are? Those are people like us who are on the cyberspace right now, who are a threat to them because we're talking about this. And did you get that survey, by the way?
I saw that survey. I didn't participate in it, but I wanted to quickly remind people, a lot of our viewers will know this, but the Federal Reserve is not federal. It has nothing to do with the federal government. It is a conglomerate of private banks that isn't even accountable to the government. It's been there, Alan Greenspan, who was the Federal Reserve chairman around the Bush administration era and before. And he was interviewed on, the nightly news, which was back then a big thing. It was before it became this nothing burger, but back then it was a big thing. And the anchor woman or man asked him, well, what is the proper relationship between the chairman of the Federal Reserve and the president of the United States? And Alan Greenspan said, frankly, the Fed is an independent agency and its decisions cannot be overruled by anyone. So yes, the president appoints the chairman, in a charade, because if the Fed controls the money, they'll pick their chairman and the president will comply.
You're a person, man.
Yeah, they'll pick them and the president or resident, depending on, will comply. So if the Fed brings in a digital dollar, which is programmable, then a private conglomerate of banks and bankers and banksters, let's call them what they are, will have 100% control over your life every single day. So what I'm saying here is, my friends, I don't know how to word it any different than we have been. And we've come at it from this various angles. We need to do everything we can to not just bring this information out, which includes you, force multipliers, right? But also ask yourself, what can you do in your life today to become more independent? Because the people 150 years ago could weather such storms much easier because they knew how to grow their food. They knew how to, raise cattle. They knew how to work with the land and live with the land. We've forgotten this. So it's high time we become more independent and self-reliant. What do you think, Frank?
That I have something that I want to show you that pertains exactly to what you're talking about with respect to people having lost touch with those very fundamental forms of existence by having been at first at the turn of the century or last century sort of been herded into the metropolitan cities. And now with Agenda 21, of course, there's a new plan. And I have this video, which is like, ultra sexy, that talks about the next stage with respect to those metropolitan zones. Should we have a quick look at that too?
Yes, please.
This one is pretty slick.
For too long, humanity has existed within dysfunctional and polluted cities that ignore nature. Now, a revolution in civilization is taking place. Imagine a traditional city and consolidating its footprint, designing to protect and enhance nature. The line will be home to 9 million residents and will be built with a footprint of just 34 square kilometers. And we are designing it to provide a healthier, more sustainable quality of life. The line's communities are organized in 3 dimensions. Residents have access to all their daily needs within 5-minute walk neighborhoods. And the line's infrastructure makes it possible to travel end to end in 20 minutes with no need for cars, resulting in 0 carbon emissions. By leveraging AI technology, services are autonomous, saving you time and effort. Designed by world-leading architects, the line is 500 meters tall, 200 meters wide, 170 kilometers long, and housed within an elegant mirror glass facade. Intelligent solutions create efficiency and year-round temperate microclimate with natural ventilation. Energy and water supplies are 100% renewable. The line is designed as a series of unique communities, offering a wealth of amenities, providing equitable views and immediate access to the surrounding nature. With 40% of the world accessible within 6 hours, at the heart of the globe's key trade routes, a place for commerce and communities to thrive like nothing on Earth seen before. The line, the city that delivers new wonders for the world.
Whoa.
I think I threw up in my mouth just a little bit here.
Unique. I like that part about this unique villages, right? And they show these slices, and they have this perfect English voice talking about, oh, it's going to be wonders in the world. And it's just so amazing, and all the benefits and all the pluses. And it's so good for the environment. Of course, they don't tell you that you're not going to be out there in the wilderness. That'll be where the sovereigns will be living, probably, right? Just like, there are movies about this kind of thing. But it just shows us that essentially they want to sandwich us into these little cubicles, which are extensions of your office, when you go to a cubicle office, except they've got like world-class architects designing these little, and they all look the same. Essentially, this is what I've been talking about in the last, couple of weeks, is just, we have to realize that what we're facing right now is the decision that we could be looking at the last generation of natural organic human beings, because they are they're herding us into smaller and smaller spaces. They are automizing everything. They are connecting us to the digital world of the Internet of Everything. And they essentially are, foregoing the concept of sovereignty in the sense that we know it, where, if you actually had access to clean energy, like a free energy device, which they've invented them probably over 100 years ago by now already. But if you had that, you could actually set up anywhere you wanted in nature, and you could still live in harmony with nature, and you wouldn't be polluting. But they don't want us to know these things. And that's why they have these plans. And you can be sure that, you can just imagine the kind of budget that went into making that video. I'm in post-production. I know what's behind those kinds of videos. There's serious money being invested. This is one of these George Soros think tank groups that that produce these things, and they show it to themselves, and they have another guy that's their guru, is this guy Yuval Harari. So I guess we should listen to a couple of sound bites of him too, I think, if we have time, because
you want to make me sick to my stomach today. Huh?
Yeah, I want everyone to get sick to their stomach today. So should they get up and
bring on
I'm not going to take it anymore.
Bring on the psychopath Yuval Harari, who.
Let's listen to Harari.
Come on. Complete madman. Yeah.
He's such a cutie.
COVID is critical because this is what convinces people to accept, to legitimize total biometric surveillance. If we want to stop this epidemic, we need not just to monitor people, we need to monitor what's happening under their skin. What we have seen so far is corporations and governments collecting data about where we go, who we meet, what movies we watch. The next phase is the surveillance going under our skin. We're now seeing mass surveillance systems established even in democratic countries, which previously rejected them. And we also see a change in the nature of surveillance. Previously, surveillance was mainly above the skin. Now it's going under the skin. Governments want to know not just where we go or who we meet. Above all, they want to know what is happening under our skin. What's our body temperature? What's our blood pressure? What is our medical condition? Now humans are developing even bigger powers than ever before. We are really acquiring divine powers of creation and destruction. We are really upgrading humans into gods. We are acquiring, for instance, the power to re-engineer life. I know that in recent years, we saw populist politicians undermining deliberately the trust that people have in important institutions like universities, like respectable media outlets. These populist politicians told people that, say, scientists are this small elite, disconnected from the real people. I mean, all this story about Jesus rising from the dead and being the Son of God, this is fake news. Humans are now hackable animals. You know, the whole idea that humans have, you know, they have this soul or spirit and they have free will and nobody knows what's happening inside me. So whatever I choose, whether in the election or whether in the supermarket, this is my free will, that's over.
That's over. And this is the actual patent, WO 2020 060606. Take away the zeros. What does it leave you with?
That's a Microsoft patent, isn't it?
This is Microsoft. And look at the different countries. I mean, all the states that they've put this through. This is some serious bucks that went. And this was filed internationally on the 20th of June 2019. And, you know, originally the priority date was, this goes back to 2018. So you can see that they've been planning this. You know, this is what he calls it. This is his formula for it that he talks to at his gatherings. The World Economic Forum is B times C times D equals A, which is biological knowledge times compute power times data, which in other words, sensorize everything, is the ability to hack humans, right? So, I mean, I think he sums it up better than anyone possibly could in terms of, you know, he's got no shame.
No, because he's got no empathy. He's got no consciousness. It's just pure computing.
Right. And this is what we've been talking about from the very beginning with the timelines and the discussion that the Guardians of the Looking Glass initiated, that put out this idea that there's this, what I call the transhumanist timeline versus the natural timeline, the one that actually will be the one where we realize this through a quantum evolutionary leap, our fullest potential. And Harari just doesn't believe in that ideology at all. And it's just very clear. What people don't realize is that this isn't just random once in a while. They have regular meetings. He publishes books. Obama, you know, worships the guy, carries his book around with him. And I mean, these people are essentially...
And he's a senior advisor to Klaus Schwab in the World Economic Forum. And they in turn are in the major cabinets and administrations in the world. So this is not just some random guy babbling. This guy has the ear of the most powerful people in the world right now, and pretend powerful. Yeah,
he does. And the way he talks about it, it's always so, you know, like these people always phrase everything in such language that it's beneficial for, you know, this is where the direction, this is the inevitability of it all. Like, it's just this idea that there's no way out of this. Right. And it's just, you know, you get a sense from him, you know, that he just thinks that the old model of humans, and Ray Kurzweil would probably agree 100% with him, is an obsolete model, that the idea of death is a disease, right? And I guess in a sense that if you pump your body full of all the crappy foods that they've been polluting into the system, the food supply for the last century, then yeah, your death is a kind of a disease. Your body begins to decay and wither. But I mean, look, there are stories in the Bible of Noah being 900 years old. So there's obviously a model of human beings that surpasses aging, as we've been brainwashed in society to accept, in the pace of, which isn't true. And the idea of us evolving to this other state of consciousness would include sort of surpassing or bypassing this regular, this obsolete model of what we think is aging. And they're not talking about this at all. They're only talking about their version of reality. I think we're one of the only people that are out there who are continually talking about what this potential is of humanity, while at the same time pointing out this sort of darker side, this other negative timeline, not for the sense of being negative or for scaring people, but we actually need to kind of wake up. We need to get off the couch and go out there and do something. I'm sorry, it sounds kind of like apocalyptic, but what do you think, John?
It is freaking apocalyptic.
It is. Isn't it like it's almost like you've been diagnosed with a terminal illness and your doctor's given you maybe a year? What are you going to do with that year? Are you just going to sit back and eat, chips and drink yourself into oblivion? Or are you going to say, you know what? I always wanted to do this, this, and this, and make use of that. Use the time, seize the day. This is kind of what we need to get that out there. I don't know what else to say about it.
There are two things that motivate people to change. And I know this because this has been such a big part of our work with Kristin, is literally working one-on-one or in groups of people who want change. It's either necessity or urgency, which means they have come to a point in their lives where they're either mentally, spiritually, physically so unhealthy that they know unless they change something, they're going to die, right? Or it's going to get really, really bad. So it's necessity, urgency, or an intense hunger, and the hunger for change, for better, for more, for a better life. That is usually driven by urgency, but it doesn't have to be as imminent. It can be something that drives people longer. But we have seen that urgency is the number one motivator for 97% of the people. And I would love for that to change in the future, but that's where we are right now. So we are showing you the urgency simply because we want you to see it. They're not showing you the urgency. And there's a clear distinction. We are now at the end of the transition phase. The transition phase was still a phase where you could choose whether you wanted to, you can interact with technology and AI, and you can be some sort of a part of it, but then again, step out of it if you wanted to. That transition phase is coming to an end. The very near future, I'm talking months, maybe a few years tops, I believe will make a clear line. You're either completely moving into the system, which is going to be an AI-determined life. And for a lot of people that don't want to make choices, don't want to take responsibility, that's going to be awesome because AI is going to decide everything for you. When you eat, what you eat, where you can go and cannot go. And it will seem amazing to you because you won't have to think about anything anymore. And if that's what you want, you're going to have the ability to experience that. The other side is complete self-determination, which very few of us have ever lived. Complete self-determination and also responsibility for your own life, for every aspect of it, for everything, water, food, shelter, all the necessities and all the joys and pleasures, everything. And I believe people are just beginning to realize what that means. This is a hardcore deviation from your life. I understand that, but if you want to stay organic and want to experience what we're actually capable of, like Frank has said, we're just beginning to scratch the surface of what we're actually capable of. Forget AI. AI will never be capable of what we're actually capable of. But we'll never know what that is exactly if we go down that artificial route. So if you don't invest all of your time in creating the future that you want and doing everything in your power to help bring that about, the vision, right? They've been talking in that video about the line, there's going to be 3 dimensions. Yes, exactly. They want to lock you into the 3 dimensions, literally lock you into the 3 dimensions. We're saying there's more dimensions. We're saying there's more to the experience, and it's up to you. I mean, no one can do this for you. Unfortunately, I know people don't want to hear this, but no one can do it for you. Each and every one of us have to do it for themselves and come together and then function as communities, groups, villages, families, kins and bring about a natural, organic, beautiful life again.
Yeah, and I think, one of the things that you're leaving out here is that, people, if they do nothing, that they're gonna slip into this, or they're gonna be slipped into this artificially intelligence surveillance society world. However, there's no guarantee that you're going to be slipped into that world. With the technologies that have been unleashed on society in the last couple of years, it's become very clear that not everybody's going to make it. And that's something you have to come to terms with in terms of your daily decisions. Do you want to take back your own power, your own sovereignty in that sense? Sovereignty is a word that has more to do with, with your connection to the divine source. That's the only form of sovereignty you have. All other forms of sovereignty out in the world are only, mirrors or like assimilations of that one primal form of sovereignty, which is your connection to your higher self, your divine self. And, these guys are, there's no surprise that this symbol here is the symbol in front of CERN, because that's Shiva, and Shiva is the god of destruction, in the sense that you need to destroy something before you can take and build something new. And, we've seen what those guys want to build that's new, right? They want to sandwich it all together. Those are plans that are on the table. They've already got underground highways. They've got their own underground cities, and you can be sure they've got their little nest egg in their corner of everything worked out for themselves. But I think for one more thing, I think we should play today, which is an inspiration, okay? Because we've been talking about going to your elected officials with, armed with knowledge that can help push the envelope of this dialogue out there in society where it needs to be right now. And there's this senator in Australia called Malcolm Roberts. And on the 28th of July, which is only a couple of days ago, he made the following live talk in Parliament. And I'm going to play that because I think it's really worth hearing.
Klaus Schwab's life by subscription, quote, is really serfdom. It's slavery. Billionaire globalist corporations will own everything: homes, factories, farms, cars, furniture. And everyday citizens will rent what they need, if their social credit score allows. The plan of the Great Reset is that you will die with nothing. To pull off this evil plan, Klaus Schwab's World Economic Forum will need to take more than just material possessions from Australians. Senators in this very chamber today who support the Great Reset threaten our privacy, freedom, and dignity. Yes, they're in this Senate chamber. One Nation vehemently opposes the Great Reset, the Digital Identity Bill, theft of agricultural land use, forcing farmers off their land, and all of the Great Reset. One Nation has a comprehensive plan to bring our beautiful country back to sustainable prosperity. And in the months ahead, we will be rolling that plan out. Instead of LibLab pushing Klaus Schwab's Great Reset with the tagline, "You will own nothing and be happy," One Nation advocates the Great Resist. We stand for a world where individuals and communities have primacy over predatory globalist billionaires and their quizzling bureaucrats, politicians, and mouthpiece media. One Nation accepts the challenge to provide a better future for everyday Australia.
So we got to be like One Nation, we got to get out there. The Klaus Schwabsters he's talking about, they're sitting in the Canadian government. The Trudeau cabinet is filled with these people. Why is no one calling them out on it? Make them identify themselves. Make them swear an oath to the people, which they did when they became elected. All politicians, if I'm not mistaken, aren't they supposed to swear an oath to uphold the laws of the citizens, to look out for the country, right? I mean, you're laughing, I know, right? Because it's become a mockery of what's really going on here. But this man, Roberts, he's symbolizing the kind of resistance we need to take to those levels, because right now, as long as we're still in that system, and, I think it's, okay, I tend to believe it's rotten to the core and it's pointless anyway, but look, we haven't got an alternative at the moment. And, and we've allowed ourselves to be led down this garden path to this point where we're actually beholden to these decision makers, and we just have to start reversing those situations and the only way we can do it is to arm ourselves with this information, get in their faces, make appointments, be courteous, get your little PowerPoint together, your laptop, and hit them.
And go on a public record. Sign up for your town meeting. Go on record. Don't be in their faces and call them names. Just say, hey, here's the facts I've gathered. Stick to the facts. This is what I've noticed. These are the patents. This is what's in the plans. Do you town council, do you mayor, do you governor, do you commissioner, whatever their title is, do you support the implementation of a social credit system / the Great Reset in your jurisdiction?
Yeah.
You can go on a record today and say, no, such a system I will never support. Boom, it's done. But that's one part of the work I think we all need to do. That it's without a question, because it gets in a public record and that means something. But also I want to encourage you. You can see one thing. They needed to establish all this technology to over decades and decades and centuries. Mind control people, mind control politicians. They've committed so many crimes to get to this point, and still the human spirit is totally giving it to them every time, because that's something they cannot deal with. That's what gives us the upper hand. If we activate this, it's stronger than all of the bullshit. Because a truth cannot be hidden forever. A truth, when it is a real truth, it will eventually win. It will get the upper hand. And we can accelerate the process by finally realizing how powerful we are. We don't need all that crap. As a matter of fact, I grew up in a time that didn't have internet. I grew up without that crap, and I loved growing. I'm not saying technology is inherently just bad. What I'm saying is we can actually define this. And because there's no movie out there who portrays a beautiful natural future, hint, hint, what does that mean? They only show you versions of a dystopian future. One looks a little better, one looks a little worse, but they're all a technocratic, AI-controlled future. That's on purpose. It's not that there are no visions. They just don't want to show you. There's millions of people with beautiful visions, and I believe you're one of them. I do believe in you. Actually, Frank and I so believe in you that we keep coming back, pleading our case and saying, please, you start believing in you, because we already believe in you. We already have full faith that humanity can win this, and humanity can once again be in its destined place of being custodians, co-creators of a beautiful, harmonious, organic, authentic, real future. We believe in that 100%. Frank, do you agree?
Yes, I do. I want to say one more thing about, you said about mind control. I've been hearing that word a lot lately. And I know you had that interview, right, with Kathy O'Brien. And I still, there's a little voice in me that sort of comes up whenever I hear it. It's like, because I did some research on NLP. And, mind control is one of the most powerful things that you as a human being have. If you have control of your mind, you have control of the little voices, you have control of all the temptations, you have control of all the signals. You can have complete mind control over yourself. And we should never forget that mind control, even though it's been given this negative spin out there, and I'm guilty, I've talked about it too, and gaslighting and mind control. But look, the fact is, mind control is one of the keys that we have to beating all of this artificiality, all of the lies out there, because it's through mind control that we can determine, hey, these shows that we're watching about this dystopian future, I'm not going to watch that kind of crap anymore, because I'm seeing now that I'm being pulled in emotionally into that story, and it's taking not only my emotions, which is, some people call it lush, being sucked into, by the archons, if you will, and others are, it's you're giving your time. Every day or every hour that you sit in front of some show, just giving your emotions to some other fantasy created by some script writers in Hollywood, you're losing out that little bit of extra time that you have to manifest the timeline that we need to be on right now. And so mind control, I think we should all be wary of not just looking at that negatively. We should also realize, hey, mind control is what I need to have. I need to control my mind so that I can control the decisions that I'm making in my daily life. And I think that's how I'd like to close today.
Boom. And I think it's wonderful. Frank, thank you for another information-packed conversation. I think also inspiration-packed, ultimately. It's always a pleasure, always an honor. Inspired Tribe, take this. Don't just run with it. As always, dig into it. See if you find something else. If you feel different about it, it's fine. We just encourage you to actually dig into these things. And most of all, like Frank said, take control of your own destiny, which means taking control of your own mind, of your own spirit, your own body. Thank you for tuning in. We appreciate you. We love you. And also, Frank's webinar, he mentioned it, A Tale of Two Timelines, has been so highly popular. We'll put the link down here and in the video description. Please do yourself a favor, watch the webinar. It's a 3-part webinar. And Frank really breaks down the timelines, the looking glass technology, CERN, and so much more. People have been reaching out, just absolutely excited about the quality of this amazing webinar. So A Tale of Two Timelines, don't miss it. Link in the description. Until we see each other again, be abundantly blessed and have an inspired rest of your day.